every time I post something on Twitter or YouTube or TikTok or whatever about Kel'el Ware, the comments I always get sound something like, why isn't this guy a top 5 pick? And on the surface, that makes sense. You have a 7-footer who can shoot the ball from 3, put the ball on the deck, and finish strong. Legitimate floor spacing, incredible vertical athleticism, the ability to block shots. We all know what Kel'el Ware can do. But the question I want to answer this question in this video, or at least try to, is why isn't this guy a lock top 5 pick? Or why isn't he viewed as one? And Ware is certainly a very unique archetype. And I do land on the optimistic side when it comes to Kel'el Ware. I've been high on him basically his whole college career, even in Oregon when he wasn't really playing. But I think there are fair concerns, and I think we can kind of parse out the line between his ceiling of a legit 3 and D5 versus his floor of maybe not being a great NBA player. And his profile is undeniably unique. Not very many legit center size. Kel'el is a true 7-footer who shoot threes, at least 3 for 100, and block shots at a young age. They're basically all successes, the guys who got drafted, and then Bamba. And Bamba is a player who I've definitely seen mentioned and I've thought about when it comes to Kel'el Ware as like an ultra-talented shot blocker who took some threes. Similar-ish profile, right? Where didn't shoot a ton of threes, great mid-range, the mid-range scoring, which we'll get into is a big difference. But how can he avoid the quote-unquote Bamba pitfalls? And we're going to get into those with a quick review of what prospect Mo Bamba looks like. And the highs with him were very, very high, as Bamba hasn't really worked out as a top 10 level pick in the league, but man, he was legitimate, like 7 foot with an unreal wingspan, could move a bit on the perimeter. The shot blocking flashes from a guy that enormous who could leap and explode on the weak side were undeniably impressive. And Bamba flashed the ability to shoot threes and to space the floor at that height, and he was able to make big plays as a finisher with his height and explosion. So that's a really impressive theoretical package. But what was the issues? And I think the main issues that I came up with for Bamba not working out were his feel for the game and some of the movement skill stuff and the motor, where Bamba really wasn't really thinking the game at a high level. He's got an open pass there and he kind of just like runs into a guy and gets a charge. He often didn't really seem like he had a great grasp of reading the floor, where defenders were coming from. Very often defenders would double and he wouldn't really process them until it was too late and he was turning the ball over. Did just like dumb stuff like dropping the ball and not being able to catch. And then on defense, there were some real foot speed and mobility issues. And I think this is, people kind of recognize the movement skills for legit centers as more important than they did maybe even 6 or 7 years ago. But you can see how clunky Bamba, like he's enormous and he gets low, but he's kind of like hopping around. He's overly jumpy. He can't necessarily stop on a dime and change directions with any sort of grace or fluidity. And these were the kind of pitfalls that led to him not really working. There were some flashes, right? Here he stands up on Trae Young and is able to force a drive out to the corner and not get scored on. But the pick and roll defense, the awareness, all of that was really generally poor. As Bamba, again here, the motor and the effort level were consistent issues with him. And I think that's one of the main concerns with Ware, who definitely improved that this year, but has had credible motor and effort level concerns, where Bamba's just kind of like standing around, swipes at the ball, isn't able to recover and make a play, just kind of gets bullied in the post there. Here he's just going to stand around guarding the pick and roll, has no clue what's going on. And I think these are some of people's rightful fears about Kel'el Ware, that yeah, he has all these physical tools. He has all the physical tools in the world. But what does that matter if you don't know how to apply them? And Bamba, I think, has been, he's at least an NBA player, right? Bamba has been up and down in terms of advanced metrics on his second contract. He's not a good NBA player, but he's one who you can play in the regular season. And I would say that's probably the floor for for Ware. But I would argue that there's a couple things that I do think separate him from someone like a Bamba or even like a Jackson Hayes, who I think of as like these really raw centers. But Ware definitely has some of these problems where he'll be overly jumpy closing out to a shooter. This is just lazy and not great. He swipes from behind, ends up giving up a wide open drive. The effort level stuff isn't always great, where, again, this is just kind of inexcusable effort. There's not really much way to put it. And I will say this got better this year. It was a lot worse last year at Oregon, but still, you should never let someone behind you beat, like, as the center, the one who's supposed to be back in transition. This should just never happen. And it happens more than you would probably hope. Again, similar to the Bamba plays we see where stationary in pick and roll defense, Tominaga has a nasty hezzy, obviously, but for a guy with Ware's physical tools and movement ability, which we'll get to, he should at least be trying to make a play on the ball. And these are the kind of plays where I think it's hard to really know if it's a motor concern or a feel and awareness concern. Because on one side of the coin, it's like Ware knows what he should be doing, and he's just not doing it. The other side of the coin is Ware doesn't really know what he's doing. He's trying to make a play. He just doesn't realize that he has to react quickly and make a play. And I think that's one of my central questions is, which one is it? Is it more feel or more motor? And I think it's certainly a mix of both. The closeout defense and the perimeter defense is shoddy. And I think one of the main physical limitations for Ware, and why I don't think he's up there with like the Alexar type bigs, is his kind of stiffness in his hips and changing directions. You can see that his hips are a bit high, and it takes him a while to swivel and get around. And I do think that hampers his ability to cover ground and play on the perimeter. But on the other hand, and then there are, times when Ware just like doesn't really jump when you think he should. This is kind of like Aiton-esque, where all the physical tools, explosion, length in the world, it doesn't really matter if you don't jump and use that to contest. But Ware, I think, improved in a way that was meaningful this year and showcased enough dominant rim protection, where you can see Ware has the foot speed to backtrack and drop here. Doesn't end up biting on these pump fakes and just swats that shit. Ware's superpower on defense, aside from his size and his length, is his ability to rise quickly without load. A lot of bigs have to like swing their arms and bend their knees really sharply to get up, but Ware is standing straight up, not necessarily in an explosive stance, and swats this. Like, go outside or stand up right now, wherever you are, and try to jump as high as you can without really bending your knees. It's a difficult thing to do even for professional athletes, but it's something that Ware is fantastic at. And we see that ability to rise up quickly and get blocks as a key point of all elite rim protectors pretty much, and Ware has that down pat. I think his jumpiness overall got a lot better this year too, as his discipline seemed to improve. Ware is the type of presence, at least at the college level, where offenses just don't want to shoot over him because they know how devastating his shot blocking is. So his presence alone will lead to passing out and passing up layups, and Ware could jump here. He could jump here, and then he waits and swats that shot. It is really impressive discipline and timing. And it's plays like this that give me more hope than that he can actually guard in the pick and roll higher than a guy like Bamba. I think his best pick and roll position is going to be as just like a deeper drop defender, which we'll get into later. But this is pretty good. He's like playing in high drop, not in perfect positioning, but he has this long 1-2 step with that crazy length and fluidity, gets in front, and then it's just over from here. Ware's size and length, and I think notably he improved in terms of physicality, and I think I had this play here twice. Yeah, but his willingness to be physical and to impose his tools is really, really important. And then on the offensive end, Ware will definitely have some of the same feel concerns as Bamba, which we'll get into. Ware isn't like the smartest passer in the whole world, where it looks like he's trying, like he's pump faking here, like he has a pass that he could make here, but I guess it makes sense because he jumped. Ware isn't kicking out where he probably should kick to one of his wide open shooters and ends up just throwing the ball away. Ware definitely isn't consistent against pressure, and especially making decisions on the move when he's moving to score. A lot of young players, bigs, guards, whoever, have a tough time marrying their scoring and playmaking responsibilities, where is probably trying to score here, realizes he can't, and then, he's going to pass in the corner, but there's a defender right there sitting on him, and it ends up being a turnover. Again, we see another turnover facing a double team where Ware is unable to read that quick enough and ends up just like dropping and losing the ball. These are the kind of pitfalls that centers fail in, where a guy like Bamba, who he was obviously a really dominant lob and above the break finisher, but it's like you pressure him, you send two, and there's nothing they can do. They just don't read the floor quick enough. They're not going to make smart plays. They're not going to make optimal decisions, and they're not going to be able to read help. Again, just a kind of dumb play, driving straight into a helper. Ends up getting blocked there. There was too much of this on the tape, but his passing, I think, improved in a way that was underrated this year. He actually had a positive assist to turnover ratio in the half court, which surprised me. Most of his passing turnovers actually came in transition, funny enough, where he showed the ability to do basic stationary stuff like passing to cutters and basic system learned reads. I really like this possession where sees Edie showing, and immediately he's not waiting, he's not lollygagging around. He knows where the gaps in the court is, finds, ball moves, and he's going to end up getting the ball for a dunk. So that's rewarding his initial ball moving. Ware's improvements as a short roll passer, though, were most intriguing to me. I think this is where the potential for him is really interesting. Where catches the ball in an advantage situation, finds the low man. That's a valuable thing to have in the NBA. And it's something that Ware got better at this year, reading these 2v1, 3v2 situations, seeing the help and making a decision. It's not anything crazy or high level, but the ability to catch, read, and pass all kind of in one fluid sequence is something that a lot of young bigs straight up can't do. And it's something that Ware is showing the ability that he can do. And I think the thing that differentiates Ware from a guy like Bamba or Hayes or anything is his scoring ability. As we can see, he was money from the quote-unquote like far too mid-range area. Insane volume over his 2 years. Super, super efficient. Great foul drawer. And that really tracks on tape. He has a silky smooth fadeaway jumper that's really difficult to guard and contest with his height and his wingspan. And when Ware is spinning into shots like this, there is very little that defenses can actually do. And his touch is one of the best in the class. I think I showed this clip at the beginning, but I kind of just glossed over it in talking about his strengths. Ware is a phenomenal athlete, and his fluidity as a driver, Euro stepping, using his strength, and we can see the soft shooter's touch here, just feathering in this shot off the back of the rim. The touch stands out in every aspect of his scoring. And I think Ware's ability to win with touch, to contort his body, is going to help him as a play finisher and as a release valve. On these kind of short roll decisions, a lot of times when players can only pass, defenses can kind of back off and play that pass and force them to be a scorer. But Ware is a scorer first. This is what he does. And I think Ware in this kind of short roll area is going to be really effective, which we'll kind of get to in a second. I think I misordered these clips, but his ability to contort and twist his body and finish with touch on these lobs when he can't dunk. Ware is a prolific athlete and a prolific dunker, but you can't dunk everything. Sometimes it's a bad pass or you're not in a position to, but catch, turn, locate the rim, finish soft. That's genuinely an impressive skill. And I think sometimes he maybe relies a little too much on his touch and acts like he's playing 21 at lunchtime in high school. But it's understandable when you see the kind of stuff that Ware can do as a true 7-footer, cutting into the lane and hitting floaters, sitting in this short intermediate paint area. And it's kind of a trump card of sorts when you have a center who can just catch the ball and go up. This is like the basis of the case for a guy like Zach Edey, right? He's taller than you, longer than you, can catch the ball, throw it up. Doesn't really matter what the contest is like. In this short roll situation, especially if Ware is threatening as a passer, let's say he ends up being a pretty decent passer, they will help on him as a passer and a scorer, and he's going to be able to finish in traffic with touch like that. So I think because of these things, the ceiling for Ware is really high. The feel issues are for real. They definitely are, I think, limit the ceiling to some extent. But Ware's ability to score and pass out of the short roll especially, as well as his lob finishing and potential spacing, to me make his high-end peak look like a Brook Lopez-ish type impact. And I'm not necessarily comparing him to Lopez in terms of skill set, more just in terms of role and impact, where Lopez has been the keystone of the Bucks' vaunted drop defense for years. He's not the most mobile guy in the world, but he's huge, strong, and long, and is really hard to handle when you park him at the rim, let him use his discipline, his hips, and his length to shut shit down at the basket. It's just a very difficult thing for most defenses to really handle. He's been in Defensive Player of the Year conversations for a lot of his career for a reason. And I think this is going to be Ware's best thing. When you don't have to space him out, when you can just park him at the rim and say, shoot over me, I dare you. That's going to be something where Ware, in theory, assuming he puts on strength, as he probably will as he ages, excels. But those guys also always have limitations, especially, and we saw this in the playoffs this year, especially against the Pacers when, I guess only against the Pacers. Go Pacers, by the way. Where they would drag Brook out and have him like guard in isolation. And I think this is going to be a similar concern for Ware, whose slower hips and the feet aren't incredible, won't allow him to. But that's still really high offensive impact or defensive impact overall. And then Lopez can do some of the same things we've seen Ware do, right? Cutting into the middle of the floor, using his great touch to hit push shots and hooks and floaters. He can put the ball on the floor in his like old man strength way and draw fouls and get downhill. The skill level isn't like phenomenal, but his strength and his touch and his size are all so overwhelming. I think Lopez, like Ware, has never been the best decision maker on the short roll. Here we have a 2-on-3 situation right after they trap Dame. 2-on-3. You have 1-2-3, 1-2. And Brook just doesn't read Porter sliding down nearly quick enough and ends up turning the ball over Ware. These are some of the same pitfalls that Ware falls into. And of course, Lopez's ability to space the floor is uncanny for a guy of that size. But it's important to note the progression of Lopez's career, where he obviously didn't really shoot threes until his like 7th or 8th season in his career. And Ware is obviously starting at a much higher baseline of shot making than Lopez did, who basically didn't shoot at all in college. But that's, to me, the optimistic lens for Ware. And I think it's possible enough that he gets there that I'm willing to have Ware as a lottery-level guy in this class. I'm not comfortable with him, like, top 7 plus because of the motor and feel issues that we talked about and that we showed. I think there is too much of the Bamba problem to be fully confident in him being a legit star. But Ware's combination of elite physical tools and rim protection upside, as well as legitimate viable scoring options in terms of post work and floaters and rim running and lob catching and possible spacing above the break, make the ceiling really, really tantalizing. And in a weak draft, I certainly think that is worth a lottery pick. But I'd love to know what you think.